Hello and welcome to another episode of the CG Garage. This is episode number 432, featuring Marc Simonetti, who is currently an art director over at DNEG, but has the reputation of being a very, very excellent artist and illustrator who has done some incredible work with a great reputation and a true pleasure of a person to talk to and to enjoy his company, which I have done several times over at THU. He's been a person, a guest over there many times, and I absolutely love Marc. In fact, he and I've hosted a panel on the effects of AI, and this was back in September. So imagine how much the world has changed since then. And Marc was one of the people on that panel and gave some really very interesting insight into his thoughts on how AI is going to affect art, and his art more specifically. And we'll get into that. But we do talk a lot about his career and how he got to doing the incredible things he does. Shares a great story with us, an incredible adventure he had with George R.R. Martin, and it led to him working on some amazing Game of Thrones stuff as well. And then, of course, we talk about his transition from being an artist and illustrator to an art director, and what that means in terms of giving art direction as opposed to maintaining your own art. It was really cool to talk to him about that. But we do, yes, in fact, talk about AI quite a bit, and he gives some very good insight in terms of how that movement has specifically changed his life and his reputation and his name. And it's a really fascinating interview. As I mentioned last time, I had someone who really enjoys doing AI art. And Marc is someone who is really highly affected by it. So I'm trying to create as many different perspectives as possible as we have this discussion and see what he thinks about all of that. So I really appreciate Marc coming on and being as eloquent on the subject as he has been. So I really appreciate that. And again, I'm trying to bring lots of different voices to this. In fact, next week, there's an entertainment lawyer who I interviewed, and we talk about that specific aspect about how he thinks things are going to change in terms of the law, or about how the law is currently protecting certain things or not protecting certain things. So very interesting to have that. But Marc's perspective is really cool. Okay. A couple of announcements. I think I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago or this week or last week. V-Ray 6 Update 1 is out for V-Ray for Houdini. Lots of new features there, which is really great. So you now have them inside of Houdini. You have bump to glossiness, which is a really great way of balancing the balance and the glossiness of maps effects. It's really good for skin, for example. Lots of new controls on light decay. Enhanced procedural clouds have been added. A lot more work has been done on USD, especially with Solaris. Speaking of Solaris, we're much faster to first pixel in Solaris as well, which is really cool. We've added a new NVIDIA denoiser and upscaler, AI upscaler and denoiser. And we've also had big advances in V-Ray GPU, including optimization for memory. So that's all really great things. In terms of events, you can find these all out at chaos.com/events. We will be in Australia. Yes, we'll be in Melbourne on July 13th and in Sydney on July 18th. And we will be giving some talks on a deep dive into the ArcViz landscape and how things are changing. And again, that is going to be Melbourne on July 13th and Sydney July 18th. And this is going to be brought to you by some of our partners at Digitor and Storm Effects. For more on this, just go to chaos.com/events and you can get all the details there. All right. If you guys want to know more about the podcast, of course, you can just go to our podcast page, chaos.com/CG Garage. And we often have links to all the things that we talk about in show notes for every episode. So that's always a good resource for you. But if you would like to watch the podcast, you can go to youtube.com/CG Garage. Sorry. But if you'd like to watch us, you can just go to youtube.com/Chaos Group TV, and that's all of our podcasts are stored there for now. And we'd also like to invite you to make any suggestions. We've gotten some great suggestions and ideas or feedback in general, and that's always available. So just go email us labs@chaos.com. But for now, please enjoy episode number 432 with Marc Simonetti.
Welcome to another CG Garage, where the Chaos Group talks. You'll know it's over when the last bucket drops. We're gonna fire off rays In high dynamic range, we know that ambient occlusion is passe. Global illumination won't lead you astray. And while image-based lighting is really swell, you need to make sure everything has Fresnel.
You doing good?
Yeah, I'm doing great.
How are things in France?
Quiet, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, so the last time you and I
lovely.
saw each other was at THU. We were discussing. We were both on a panel about AI, and that seems like ages ago. And the world has completely changed back then. And obviously, I want to see how you think about what things have changed as well. But before we get into that, let's get people a little bit of an introduction to you and how you got to do the kind of things you do. You're obviously very well known as an artist and have done some incredible work. But what got you into being creative and doing artistic things?
I think it was in me, kind of. I was an engineer first, so I've been doing all the scientific studies, and I was just basically drawing on the side. And when I got to do my engineering work, and I got completely depressed because I was feeling like I was not in my place. So I just I left everything and studied again to work as an artist. So I began with video games, and then I was trying to make drawings in the forums to learn how to draw correctly. And well, it was a long road, but it was just great. And even though it has been very hard, I felt like some of those moments were maybe the happiest in my life, even though we didn't have a lot of money and everything, but I think the passion was really there. So
you really just went on. How far along with your engineering degree did you get? Did you get pretty far before you changed, or did you?
Yeah, I finished my study. I got a diploma.
So you have two degrees.
2 years. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. It's not dissimilar from me. I have I double majored in math and art at the same time. But I do like both, honestly speaking. Do you still feel some interest in science and engineering?
Yeah, but for me, it's more like a hobby, in a way.
Right.
I mean, interested. I don't want to touch it, but I'm really interested in it.
Yeah. What kind of engineering were you studying?
Oh, I was specialized in materials and even more in polymers. So I was just formulating. When I was working, I was formulating the coatings for the frying pans. The T4.
Wow. Okay. Very different.
Yeah.
Very different from what you got into.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Well, so you said you started in games. Is that what you did?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I was really passionate about books, but I was thinking, kind of limiting myself because I was an engineering, so it felt like it was more technical in video games than just to make pictures for books. That's why I got into video games, because I thought the leap was shorter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So where did you go from there? Like what were some of the games you worked on, and how did you sort of evolve from there?
I think I've made many games that were kind of killed before they were released, so it won't help a lot to say that. But yeah, I was making all the environments in modeling. I was just basically making 3D for PS2 at the time.
Okay.
And the first game that was released was Alone in the Dark 5, I think.
Okay.
And from there, I got really into drawing. So that's what I wanted to do. So I left 3D, and I will use it later on in my career. But and then I started painting and drawing full time for role playing games. The old ones, the paper ones.
Yeah, like Dungeons and Dragons type of stuff, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then I got into collectible card games, and then I started basically kind of not contacting all the publisher in France to get some cover.
Mm-hmm.
And each time I was making a new cover that was kind of successful in the forums, I was just sending it to all the publishers that was kind of making my fantasy or sci-fi books. And yeah, and that's how I get into it. And then yeah,
No,
sorry.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, and then with each new cover, I was getting a little more known, and that's how I got. Uh, Everything kind of crossed itself because I was making the collectible card games for Games of Thrones. I mean, because I was passionate about the book,
Right.
so I really tried my max to have that gig.
Yeah.
It was really a small gig because it was paid something like €100 per art back in the day, so it was not a lot, and I was working a lot to make
Right.
those. But I've made a lot of those cards, so it allowed me to make the French cover art for A Song of Ice and Fire,
Wow.
and that's how I was kind of seen by George R. R. Martin. So
There you go.
it's all
There you go. No, it's interesting. So let's look back at this a little bit because obviously I know a little bit of your career, but I'm going to ask you questions as if I don't because I want our audience to know about it. But I'm curious about when was it that you said you were going on the forums, as you say? Around what time? What year is approximately? Would you?
I'm really bad at years because I'm kind of lost always in my computer, so it's just like
well, a range probably.
It was something like 20 years ago.
20 years ago. Okay. And that's when the quote unquote forums were big, right? This was there was a community of people that you would look to.
Absolutely,
right?
Yeah. For for the old ones, there was basically Craig Mullins was there. It was CG Society.
Okay.
It was CGen, I remember, and there was one in
Was
France,
there CG Talk as well? Was another big one, right?
Yeah, CG Talk. Sorry, yeah, it was CG
Right.
Talk. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So that is basically, it was interesting because that was the place to get noticed, right?
Yeah, and the good thing, we still have it on whatever Twitter, Facebook, but it was a place when you had direct access to all the working professionals.
Mm-hmm.
So you were basically kind of in the same place as all the guy we were making all those amazing pieces.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of the time when it was trendy to make some speed paintings, and that's
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's interesting, the engagement, because forums, do you think, like compared to today, I mean, nowadays you have more pressure to go like on places like Instagram or places like that to showcase your work, right? Or ArtStation.
Yeah.
And it's not quite the same, right? Do you feel that there was something, because I feel that the way that forums worked, where you posted something and then there was this long thread of people just commenting and then engaging. And so it wasn't just like a comment on a YouTube link. It was a conversation that was happening in these things.
Yeah. I think we kind of lost this. I don't know. Is that a bad or a good thing?
I don't know. I mean, that is something. I mean, everything evolves in some ways or another. I also think that places like CG Talk don't capitalize on algorithms and monetization of advertising, which is what other places.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. On that regard, yeah, it's far worse.
Far worse. I have found. I'm sorry. I have found that Discord feels like the old forums to me.
Yeah, but it also feel like the old forums in the way that are kind of deserted and a little bit dead most of the time.
Why did you feel that they're deserted? Because I feel that Discord, depending on the Discord server, can be pretty engaging.
Yeah. Oh, it's possible. I don't know the good ones probably.
Right. And maybe there needs to be some good ones. Okay. All right. Well, so you really feel that like working on your fantasy art was the one that really sort of got a lot of your attention and got people's work shown, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, fantasy or sci-fi, both. But I was just a book nerd, so whatever. I'm not fantasy or sci-fi. But the thing is, I was more into sci-fi than fantasy, but there was more work to do
in sci-fi,
in fantasy. So
right.
Yeah.
And what was it like to interact? I mean, obviously Game of Thrones. So tell us a little bit about the how that sort of led to a certain level of success for you.
Well, I was a kind of a hardcore fan of the books, so
Same.
I think it kind of yeah. So I think it showed in the pictures. That's why some people because at the time there was no TV show or anything, so there was just basically a new picture from the Game of Thrones, and if it was good, it was kind of conveyed by all the fans around the world. So that's I got a little bit of recognition. And then George just asked me to do a calendar for him. And that's how we get in touch for the first time. It was just very, very impressive for me to be directly in touch with one of my favorite authors.
Right.
Yeah. So that's for me. It's a little bit surreal to have been in contact with some of my favorite writers ever.
I can imagine. That would be incredible for anyone.
And I even got to meet him for a week in Switzerland.
Really?
Because he was there for the Neuchâtel Film Festival. And I live just at the border. So I've asked, back then, I remember all the organization I'm going to do a free exhibition of my works. Can I come there? I'd say yes.
Right.
Just to meet him. And when he saw me, he said, "Hey, Marc, come on." It was two massive bodyguards that were just kind of avoiding anyone to be next to him. And I was just in that very small circle with him and his assistants.
Wow.
So, and we got to spend one week together. So it was just
That's
great.
surreal. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I heard he's very eccentric.
I don't know. No.
Well, for example,
a very, very simple guy, very nice guy.
I know, right? So I heard a story that he writes all of his books on an old PC from like 1985 or something like that.
That's right. Yeah.
Because he's like, this one never breaks.
Yeah. Maybe he's super wise. That's why he does that.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
But we were to the Giger Museum in Gruyère in Switzerland.
Oh yeah.
It's a beautiful museum, but that's for me it's a fun story because we didn't have any time for the rendezvous.
Okay.
So I was there and I go to the museum and I asked the lady at the. I didn't have the right to say, is George R. Martin there? So I said, is there a famous writer that just came here? And she looked at me like I was kind of a maniac. So, okay, I guess not. And so I was at the entrance of the village, and then we kind of crossed the wall. It's not big. It's a very small town. Sure. Very, very small. Something like 200 meters to go to the entrance to the museum. Okay. And we were kind of stopped because people were just recognizing me in the street. So they were on the balcony. They said, "Oh, this is L.J. Martin." It was at the time of the TV show. And they were just going down. And every 2 meters, he has to sign autograph.
Oh, my God.
And he did that for, I think it took us something like 1 hour and a half to
do 200 meters?
200 meters. Yeah.
Wow. And this is when the TV show was already out, right?
Yeah, it was just kind of the first or second season, maybe. So it was really, really a massive thing.
Right. That's amazing. Okay, so that's a pretty exciting time in your life. How did things change for you after that?
I've evolved a little bit.
Yeah.
I've been doing a lot of cover arts, and then I started doing some concept art as well for movies.
Okay. Like which ones? Can you give us some examples of some of the early ones?
I worked for 1 year with Luc Besson on Valerian and the City of 1,000 Planets.
Beautiful movie.
It was a fun one to work on. Really a fun one. Because the brief was, this is the scenario, do whatever you want on that. It has to be fun and colorful.
Right.
So it was just like total freedom, kind of. So it was just great.
And were you designing, I mean, obviously you had to read the comic books and sort of know a little bit more about it, right? But were you basing your art on where the comic book started, or do you just evolve it from there? Like, how did you do that?
I designed, for example, the gun of Valerian,
Right.
but in the comic book, there's never the same, or there's just maybe one because it's not the comic is not really relying at all on gun power. It's just more like slightly more intelligent than that.
Right.
So I just kind of took the shapes and make it together. And fun thing, I wasn't good back then at making weapons, but when Luc Besson told me, "Oh, do you want to make the Valerian's weapon?" I said, "Oh, yeah." "Can you do it?" "Yeah, sure."
Right.
And so I did it. It was validated in one day.
Right. Okay.
So I made it. It was the night it was validated, and the next day I look at it, and it was obvious for me that it was looking like an air dryer. But it really worked in the movie, so good for me.
It's a very powerful hairdryer. That's pretty funny. Okay. I mean, what's the things that you like? Do you most of your concept art is around environments and things like that, or do you work with people and characters?
No, I'm pretty lucky because I've done something like 400 cover arts, so it gave me kind of a lot of range.
Right.
To work with. So I was working on environments. That's more of my thing.
Right.
And some design of the vehicles, some creatures, some costumes, some props. So kind of everything. And yeah.
Right. And what is your preferred tool for illustration? Do you work mostly in Photoshop, or do you do things by hand still, or what are some?
I still do everything, but yeah, the main tool is still Photoshop.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you dabbled back into 3D in any way?
Yeah, absolutely. I've done. I'm these days. Right now I'm art director, so I'm doing a little less. I'm still doing some, but a little bit less. But I still doing. But I'm using VR most of the time. So I'm using an Oculus and I'm using Medium most of the time.
In VR.
In VR,
okay.
Yeah.
Is that Medium
And then I can just kind of tighten it. Oh, sorry. I can add some more details in ZBrush, for example, or that kind of thing.
Interesting.
I also use Blender, Octane, whatever.
Yeah. Whatever you can. Sounds like you do. Have you used Gravity Sketch at all, or things like that?
Yeah, I've used it. I prefer the simplicity of Medium, even though it leaves it makes a kind of a crappy 3D mesh at the end. But
right,
I really like the way it just feels like making sand castles.
Right. So what is that? What gravitated you towards VR for drawing stuff? I mean, is it because of does it feel like sculpture, like a little more tactile?
Yeah, it's for me it's extremely simple and extremely powerful at the same time. You don't care even more to break the mesh because it happens so often with Maya, Blender, ZBrush. It at one point when you just have two vertex that are just not there, that cross passes or whatever, it can be just a nightmare just finding where the problem is. And yeah.
Okay. Well, all right. Well, that's cool. So let's talk a little bit about how you transitioned from being an artist and doing all the work to becoming an art director. How did that transition happen, and where did your career go from there?
Well, it's more a matter of person rather than just taste or a real will on my part. I never thought I could or I would become an art director at one point. But I've got a friend that's really good. I've been working for him when he was art director, and still can art director. But back then I was working for NPC on some movies, and he was my art director. And I met him back at THU.
Oh, who is this?
Oh, it's Ravi Benzal.
Oh, yes, of course, Ravi. Yeah.
So right now he's leading the art department at DNEG. And I say to him, I would love to work with you again because I have a tremendous lot of respect for him and his work and his ethics and everything. So, and he told me, yeah, okay. And he didn't offer me a job as a concept artist, but as art director. So I say, okay, but I was really a little bit surprised, but I say, yeah, okay, let's do that because I really wanted to work with him.
Right. And what was the project?
The project is basically kind of a full-time art director.
Okay.
So we've been working on, I don't know, many movies, but I've started last year and probably more than 20, 30 movies. I don't know.
20 or 30 movies in 1 year?
Yeah, but it's always, sometimes it's a very small, short period of time. Sometimes it's longer.
Right.
So, yeah.
What were some of your favorite ones that you can mention?
Ghostbusters,
right.
The one that's gonna be released. I don't know when, but yeah, we just designed a lot of creatures and ghosts there, so it was super fun.
Okay.
And also the director was pretty great. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So what was it like to transition from concept artist to art director?
The fun part is that at THU, I don't know if you remember what I love to do at THU. It was to do some portfolio reviews,
yes,
basically, to help people, all the people that were going there, and they were kind of sometimes lost or just needing for advices. Mm-hmm. So it was for me a way to be helpful to give those portfolio reviews and sometimes to do some bent-overs to help as much as I could. Mm-hmm. And for me, doing art director is kind of exactly the same. It's just like you're trying to bring the best of the people and to give them the proper job that just fits exactly what they're good at. So,
do you feel that you can influence someone into your style, or do you try to let people keep their own style and try to find how to direct things for it to help?
I really try to let them keep their own style because sometimes I still often do my own concept art for the same thing, but I prefer to have a wide variety of talents and rather than just some very, very short range of concept art and illustrations.
Right.
And I've been a concept artist myself, so I don't want to be the painful art director there.
But there needs to be some consistency between all these things so that they have a coherence. It's not completely different, 1 to 2, right? Like I remember when I was working on Tron and seeing like people like Ben Proctor and David Levy coming together, and they had slightly different styles, but they both lived in the same world, right? So how do you art direct that?
Oh, it's kind of a language. You have to stay within some barriers because it's kind of this is the topic, the subject, and with skill artists, you don't have to micromanage or thing like that. It's just like, okay, those are the barriers. This is where you're gonna. And sometimes you have kind of make very small changes to make the picture fit in the same world, but it's not a big deal.
Right.
Yeah.
And where do you start? Where do you start with like looking up reference, finding things to where do you start with your teams? Like, okay, we're going to work on the new Ghostbusters, right? You obviously read the script, so there's some description there that's happening, right?
Yeah.
But then you look at other, and it's like, okay, this I can imagine it looking like this. And how do you describe that to the other concept artists, or how do you come up with references? What's your process there?
I think the most important thing is the relationship with the director, because at the end it's not what we're looking for, but what he is looking for. He's kind of the artist of the movie,
right?
So we have to really listen to him and to try to understand as much as we can exactly what he's looking for, and then it's a team effort trying to find the correct references, whether it's anywhere, movies, real art or real life, and kind of feed it to making good, efficient mood boards, not gathering everything, but just trying to be very specific
Right.
on that. And then we can just give that to the concept artists so that they can still have their own freedom and just propose everything they can. But at the end, it's the director that will just make the choices.
Right. Okay. Now, obviously, I'm going to get to where we were a year ago talking about this and AI stuff. But how has you felt the evolution of this happen? Do you feel there's been this interesting evolution, or do you feel there's disruption right now that's happening in specifically that field right now?
For me, it's both.
Yeah.
I've got really. I'm gonna have a lot of hate because I have mixed feelings. So
Of
there
course.
are so many.
So
there.
I think everyone does.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna start with the plus because I don't feel it's a great tool. It can be extremely powerful.
You're talking about AI tools, right?
Yeah, AI tools. Okay. But and then there are all the minus. Minus being the way it's done or the way it relies on artworks that are not. There's still a lot of copyright infringements involved there, which I think it's a major issue. So we'll see, because we have, I think, at the moment two trials.
We have several trials going on.
Yeah. So
it's interesting. I spoke to an entertainment lawyer about it on a podcast as well. So that episode, and I was surprised to hear some of his takes, because I think it's very different to think about it. It's hard to think about the trial, right? Because so many strange things have happened in the trials. Like, okay, so the Warhol trial, I think, is a very interesting one, the Warhol Foundation, right?
Yeah.
But I don't exactly know, what this means or how this leads to things, because Andy Warhol did almost all of his art was based on other people's things, right? Or based on found objects. That was the whole pop culture thing.
Yeah, absolutely. But wasn't he lost? I think
he did lose the case. The Warhol Foundation lost the case, but the question now is, will the decision that's made, this is under U.S. copyright law, it's different, not necessarily, but is there enough precedence in that case to influence how text to image is being used, right? And that's an interesting case as well. But there's also, the argument that you hear a lot of people is like, well, people are always influenced by other people, and they're always using other people's art as reference for what they're doing. And that's how they learn. And that's how art is always derivative. What do you think about that general process or idea of that?
I don't feel it's for me, it's not really the same process at all.
Okay.
Really not. For me, for example, let's take the Warhol case.
Yeah.
It was just one guy. Whether it's just thousands of machines at the same time doing there's nothing to and it's not influence, because when I look at one reference, one painter, because sometimes I'm saying to myself, okay, I love that, I'm going to take this as a reference. I always pick just one thing that just is important to me. I still have a human filter involved there.
Okay.
And whether it's the way that artist draws lines, or the colors, or the feeling, sometimes it's just a feeling.
Right.
Right now, it's not the case with AI. I'm not completely against AI at all. Really not.
I know.
But if some people have to defend AI, they have to take the good arguments and not kind of the same one that just kind of loop all the time in the void.
Right.
I think there are some artists, I love their work with AI. I'm going to be very honest there. But most of all, for me, it's a total lack of creativity, which is kind of the opposite of what they are kind of promoting.
Well, I have a counter argument to that in some ways, but I want to first I want to deal with some of the challenges, because obviously the copyright thing and the legal thing, honestly speaking, that just has to be settled in courts. There's nothing that we can,
absolutely.
That's nothing that we can say this is right or this is wrong. The court has to sort of decide those things. And that's why we have courts.
Yeah, yeah,
But I do want to talk about, because you brought up one of the most interesting arguments at THU, which I thought was brilliant, is obviously a lot of people create art and they use artist names as part of their prompts a lot,
right,
right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
that is used quite often. And that is something that people have problems with. Is like, oh, I never use artist names or whatever. However, your name, which is quite well known, you feel that your brand has been
yeah,
damaged by AI. So explain that a
yeah.
little bit in yourself. You had some really interesting stories, and I thought it was a brilliant argument.
Yeah, since THU, my name has been used something like 400,000 of times in prompts,
Mm-hmm.
which means that right now internet is flooded with picture with my name on it, and I have nothing to do with it.
Right.
And I've spent the last 2 decades working on my own art, trying to kind of always getting better and better, and kind of, I mean, as an artist, when you're on, it's just the same for everyone. Your brand is your name,
Yep.
and each time you make a picture and there's your name under it, you have to assume it and just be very responsible of what you're gonna put on the internet.
Right.
And I have, for example, the day Queen Elizabeth died,
Mm-hmm.
I had a picture with my name on it that I haven't made. It was basically Lady Diana boxing Queen Elizabeth. And it was completely tasteless.
Right.
I'm not talking about all the crappy pictures with my name on it as well, because some were just completely bad. And some people say, oh, yeah, but your name is used, so people will see it. Yeah, but they will see
Bad.
bad pictures with my name on it. So it's bad. It's just, yeah,
Yeah. I
for me, it's just horrible.
I
Yeah.
think that's an interesting argument that I think needs to be spoken about as well. Obviously, using people's work and doing that is one thing, but I think literally the damage that it can do to your name is is big.
Yeah, it's for me. Imagine for a brand like Disney, for example, if
Mm.
they're starting to have impersonators or whatever it's called, it can be really really bad, and for anyone. Um, and I'm going to tell you something else. Just I think it was 2 weeks ago,
Mm.
there was a new trend because I felt a little bit. My name has been used to train Midjourney and Stable Diffusion. I'm on the list, and then my name has been used as a prompt. So I have thousands of pictures with my name on it. And last time they were using my real pictures, but they were using ChatGPT to produce a text based on my name. And everything was completely wrong. So I was a dead Polish architect. I was a songwriter. I was writing books. And every time it was my picture with something false about me.
Right.
So at one point, it just kind of, my name doesn't, I feel like it doesn't mean anything anymore. Because, and people can feel the right to take anyone's name and do whatever they want with it. And for me, it's completely wrong. It's just like when they were making some music with, the voices of the songwriters.
Oh, like the Drake.
I don't know which one, but for me, it's kind of total lack of respect. I would hate having my for example, I don't know, the Dead Ones
Right.
making fake song of it, because we were loving those songs because of the people that were singing it. They have their soul in it, and that's just the opposite that's happening right now. It's just like,
Yep. I think what do you think would be the right tools that you would need to help protect that again for yourself?
For me, it could be the same thing, but based on database with some ethics. Just basically, okay, if you want to have your art in it, then you get paid for it, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Just that. And then not be able to prompt anything from an artist or a photographer or someone, because I feel like it's just wrong. It's lazy and wrong.
Right. Okay. I think there's validity to that for sure. The let's think about how to the way that a tool works. Okay, as in the sense that it's it builds itself up based on things. What if you were able to create a model of your own work and license that?
For me, I wouldn't like it.
Okay.
But yeah, for some people that would be interested to kind of monetize that to other people to use that. But I don't know. For me, it's just like how to say it. For in an ideal world, for me, AI will just help suppressing all the boring tasks in the world, boring work, and creation is just like the thing. Kind of for me, it's kind of
like magic
sacred.
Selection or
it's just it's just sacred. You just creation is the best thing you have in life. So why would you just give that to something else? If I want to play guitar, I want to play guitar myself. I don't want to have a push a button and it play guitars for me. I don't see the point. It's just like watching okay, some people love watching football, but I prefer playing it than just watching it. It's not the same.
Okay.
So yeah. Sorry, what was the question?
Yeah, it's okay. Okay, so here's something that I've sort of said that I find interesting, and I know you said you didn't find it to be very creative, but I think that sometimes people confuse art and craft.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think that
that's right.
I think that craft changes constantly. It always changes. The way that you were using Photoshop before Photoshop, there was other ways of doing art, and so everything changes, right? And there was a time when people used to say using Photoshop is not real art, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, but I think that there's a craft that's interesting. I do find it interesting that, and this is just my own opinion, I believe that there was a certain time in art before the AI stuff where art was very boring. It was nothing but chicks with swords, right?
I feel like it's the same, but with some exponential on that.
There's an exponential thing. I agree. There's a huge amount, but I feel that there's some crazy ideas that are inside of people's heads that are trying to express and finding out what it would be like. I think that they're actually trying all kinds of ideas that are bigger than that.
I think it exists. I've found some art done with AI just absolutely mind blowing.
And those are usually done by people who are artists to start with.
Maybe 1%, maybe less than all the AI stuff that I've been seeing. But it exists. I won't say it doesn't. And I'm pretty sure art is not about craft neither, because sometimes you find a very simple piece that just is stuck in your mind for decades.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not and we can also have the full conversation about modern art with what is art or what is not. So no, I'm not judging that. Not at all. I don't feel qualified to judge what art is.
Right.
Yeah. At one point, art is kind of a relationship between the artist and the public.
Yes.
If there's something that's happening, then the guy is an artist.
Right.
But it's more than for me. It's more than pretty pictures. So if you can do something more than this, yeah, okay, why not?
Right.
But
what do you?
But I spent years trying to avoid any shortcut and a magic button, because shortcuts are always kind of traps in your learning curve. At the beginning, when I was making cover art, I was kind of making kind of lighting, and then I was just pasting a texture, and bam, it was done. And it was a little bit bad, I realized after some years. So right now I'm painting all the bricks in my walls.
Right.
But it feels better now, because sometimes for me, it brings something more interesting, and the picture are more vibrating. There's something happening. And so for me, the magic button is always a trap. It's
That's
but
it.
that's my own way to see it, and I'm not saying it's the same for everyone.
I think that's a really good way of illustrating it for sure. But I do like, I was thinking about the quote unquote modern art argument of what is art and what is not art, right? And there was recently there was someone who created it, and this was kind of an art project, but they created the AI camera. Have you heard about the AI camera?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Conceptually, it's interesting.
I don't know. This one, I found it completely stupid.
I think it is. I think it was stupid by design. It was designed to be like literally saying, "Isn't it kind of stupid?" But at the same time, it conceptually is very interesting, right? A camera with no lenses.
Yeah, you have to go to the place and not taking a real picture, but let AI do it.
Right.
I don't know. Sorry, I really don't. Maybe I'm probably an old schmuck or something like that. I can't. No,
but
it's not for me.
I'm not necessarily saying that it's a successful thing and it should be celebrated in any way. But I think what it does is it starts to bring up the argument of like, that's where we're going, right? It's actually bringing up the argument of, are you sure this is what you want? Or is that exactly true? Yeah. Because honestly speaking, you take a picture with your phone now and most of those pixels are not really what the lens captured. There's a lot of manipulation that's done through, machine learning to make that photograph look better or seemingly look better.
Yeah. But yeah, the art of photography is a lot of time overlooked, and I think the framing in photography and the way it's kind of the way someone will just look at things, and that's what is interesting. Rather than just maybe just the picture itself. So I
was listening to, and this was a while ago. This is before all these mid-journey tools, et cetera, were happening. A conversation with one of the main scientists from Google, who now works at Adobe, by the way, responsible for cameras, for the camera apps and the camera things are going on. And at that time, and still to some extent this time, the Pixel camera they were considered the best cameras, and they had the best colors, and they were the most balanced, and they looked the richest in terms of the way they were approached. And a lot of it came down to the LUTs, right? The color and contrast choices that were made. And what was interesting hearing him talk about it, he said that they were highly influenced by Calatrava in terms of the colors and contrast of his paintings.
Yeah, this is great.
Is it? Because it's a Calatrava now, right?
Yeah, but it was kind of a conscious decision.
Mm-hmm.
So it was an artist influencing other ones in a good way, I think.
Right. Okay.
It's more respectful to say we were influenced by that, and we try to kind of respect his color, and at the end you have more beautiful picture. You don't know where it comes from. There's not his name on all the picture because it has nothing to do with those.
Right.
I think it's far better.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on what artists can do, or what and how they can help themselves? And I'm speaking more specifically actually of young artists, because I think that's something that you and I saw when we were at THU, the massive amount of concern that young artists at that time had, because here they are spending thousands and thousands of their dollars or euros or a lot of their money to learn to be an artist. And all of that seems to be taken away from them in one fell swoop in some ways. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's there, unfortunately, kind of, because I think the Pandora box has already been opened and we can go back now. Right. Maybe I'm a little bit too pessimistic there. Maybe it's a great thing. Maybe. I don't know.
Or
So
is
for
there
that,
is there a new?
I think they always need to be extremely good at composition, anatomy, perspective, because all that AI doesn't understand it at all. For now, maybe it will, maybe tomorrow it will work, but for now it still doesn't understand that. So even in some of the artists that are making great AI things, they are great traditional artists first,
Yes.
and it helps pick the good compositions. It helps make the interesting subjects. It makes everything.
Right.
So I would say that all the basics are even more important than before. So that's the main take I would have. And also the other thing is that AI is a great tool, but you have to fight against it to avoid any generic things,
Yep.
which is kind of what it's for. And our work as concept artist, illustrator, is to avoid anything generic. Everything has to be extremely specific and to fit a mood, a tone, everything. And what AI does, it just kind of it takes everything from the internet
Right.
and just there you go.
Well,
So
by
yeah,
definition, it gives you the most predictable result.
exactly. So the most generic one.
Yes, by definition.
So yeah, exactly. Yeah,
But nonetheless, through certain things, certain artists, and I completely agree with you. The best AI artists are artists who are good at being artist firsts. They
yeah.
seem to find a way to do things. Now, as an art director, do you feel that giving that art director the art of using AI tools is to be able to art direct them better through better prompts and better ideas in that way?
Um, that's a good one. I think it's no, as an illustrator, it's already fine enough because when you spend years trying to struggle with what's wrong on that picture, trying to always, it's enough. I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good one. I don't know. Really, I couldn't. I don't feel myself really. I'm still struggling finding myself as an art director, to be honest.
As it
I know I am, but
with or without AI, you're still struggling. Yeah.
no. What to say? Along my career, I always try to be to let doubt being my guide, just to get better.
Okay.
I feel like being too confident is never a good thing. To question myself is great. So that's why I never have a very strict opinion on things. I have my taste, and I say maybe it would be better this way, but you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah. So for me, just I never take anything for granted, even though my own job right now. So yeah.
Well, I think that's good, and I think that there's nothing that's stopping you from doing that, right? Do you feel that you're a very established artist in a lot of ways? Obviously, we mentioned the younger artists have people who come out not knowing that AI is going to disrupt their career path. Do you feel that AI is going to disrupt your career path? Besides, obviously, your name being used in certain ways, but do you feel that it's going to affect your actual career and how people are going to use your work or use you as an artist?
Uh, okay, maybe, but I think I'm much more concerned for the young artists, to be very honest. I think I'm maybe it will disrupt my own career, but when it has kind of destroyed a lot of things before in the young artist, and that's one of my main concerns there, because if you think about it, my name has been used several times there in the process,
Mm-hmm.
but just to avoid young artists to have a job. And for me, it's a bad thing. Because I feel like I'm responsible, even though I have nothing to do with it, for the young ones, the struggling ones. I've been struggling for the 5, 6 first year of my career. And the thing is, I know that a lot of people say that artists shouldn't struggle, and it's not. I'm not saying it's good to struggle, but at the same time, I mean, it was already very hard to make a living from art, and now I think it's even harder. So yeah, because the good thing when you struggle for a long time and you work a lot, you develop your own style, you develop your own ideas, your own touch. And we right now, if some young artists won't have the time to work on their craft, and we will basically miss a lot of those talents. Maybe we lost some masters because of that. And right now, what we'll have is kind of, you mix hot water and cold water, and you have that thing with no taste. Or, well, it's just like that famous blog on art is called Muddy Colors, because when you mix all the painting together, it just gave you the muddy color, and you try to avoid that most of the time.
Right.
And I think that's what we have. It's just like people complaining all the time about the sequels in movies. It's all washed or whatever, and it's for me it's kind of same thing. It's kind of some people recreate new stuff, but for the vast majority will have some diluted stuff. Because when you take that artist name plus that artist name, it's just basically taking bold choices and mixing them together to have bad choices or no choices at all. Yeah.
Are you seeing a lot of these tools being used in concept art right now and disrupting the whole industry and in the film industry?
It's the same. Yeah, it happens. I also have seen some very good artists using it with success.
Sure.
So, and I've seen also some complete briefs made completely with AI. And it was not very good, but the danger there is the good enough.
The danger is the good enough. Yeah. I agree.
Because why? And it's I'm not gonna lie, it's not a good thing for salaries, for valorization of the art there.
Right. Yeah.
And I have a lot of friends using it, so I'm not overly overly happy to say it, but
Sure.
I think it is. Yeah.
Well, I honestly, I've watching the movies in the last 20 years. I feel a lot of them feel like they were written by ChatGPT. They're very generic movies and very predictable movies. So I don't necessarily think that you can blame the AI for making that. I think you can blame the people who decided that's what they want to produce. It's the humans that made the choices that, yes, I want generic because that's how I'm going to sell the most tickets.
Yeah, and then it goes to the way the movie system is working with financial first, and then all the but it's not going in the good direction anyway.
No, and this doesn't help.
Yeah.
But I do feel hopeful, honestly, in terms of art and creativity. Honestly, I'm trying to be positive. That's just my nature. But I'm looking at films like Everything Everywhere All at Once and saying, well, that came out of nowhere and that gets celebrated. So we should be happy that is happening in some ways.
That's absolutely. Yeah. Totally agree with that. There are still some gems there and there, and even though in some blockbusters you can still have some moment of genius there.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm not completely pessimistic, but I'm trying to be as real as possible because I'm a little bit tired of saying it's gonna be the end of the world, or it's great, it's a new tool if you don't adapt to understand it. So I'm in the middle.
You're in the middle.
But more on the pessimist side anyway.
That's fine. And based on the person that you are and the things you've experienced, I think that's completely legitimate that you should be that way. One thing that's been a struggle for me is I've been trying to cover this conversation a lot. And what I have found challenging is that a lot of people who are more on the, shall we say, pessimistic side refuse to talk to me or ghost me.
I understand why, because the reaction on Twitter there's so much hate at the moment, so much hatred on those subjects that it's really I don't know, the world is in a curious place at the moment, and I see a lot of It's, yeah, well, it's the Chinese the Chinese blessing. May you live. No, the Chinese curse. May you live in interesting times.
Right.
I think we are right in the middle. But I understand that people don't want to speak aloud because I will receive a lot of hate there by both of the sides right now because I'm saying, yeah, it's a cool tool. No, you can't say that because it's scraping. Oh, yeah, okay. And at the
Or
same
if,
time,
but I mean, I feel like any argument other than this is the worst thing that ever happened does not work for some people. Me saying,
yeah,
well, but there's interesting, like, what about auto selecting and all these things and how it, it can make me roto much faster if I need to roto, right? And, or all these other things. Like, what's wrong with those arguments? And apparently there's not, you
yeah, yeah.
can't do that.
And yeah, I've seen some friends using it for work and just painting completely traditional for their personal work,
Interesting.
which can be I mean it's interesting because yeah, I mean I'm not saying photo bashing it's the same, but at the same time because it's shortcut as well.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Well, I have a friend of mine who's a very successful map painter. He's like, well, that job's done. It's pretty straightforward. Yeah. Especially, you just go here. I want more clouds. Done. I don't have to paint any
Yeah,
clouds. Yeah. So.
yeah. But yeah, sometimes you don't. Well, in concept art or in illustration, it's not always art that is demanded. So
Right.
whatever. Yeah, I mean those horrible fantasy cover arts with just a photo of a guy half naked and with a sword. It already existed.
It existed before. Yes.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. There's some very interesting. I think that there's, like, for example, one of the things I follow on Instagram is there's a guy who uses AI or Midjourney to take people that are against gay rights and put them in drag, like politicians.
Yeah. I think it's brilliant.
Right?
For me, it's just brilliant. I've seen some very okay. When I look at it, I say, oh, okay, this is great.
Right.
For example, I've seen the French Revolution taken by a GoPro.
Oh wow!
And it was just great. It was interesting. It was something new, something you couldn't have without it. Right. So yeah, for me, it's art there.
Yes, right. Because conceptually, it's trying to imagine something unusual and different.
And it just circle back to the name concept art. A lot of people are taking it for art when it's much of the time the concept that matters.
Right. That's a very good point. We need to return to the concept in concept art.
yeah. And then we'll get away from the naked lady with just bikini armor and that kind of thing.
There's a lot of that. There was a lot of that. How has this affected, you're going back to, you remember the forums, right? We're talking about the forums and influence. How has this affected all of that in some ways?
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
Well, in terms of the way that art is illustrated now, like you could imagine if the AI was going on while, CG talk was going on at the same time. It would explode on a network like that, right?
Oh yeah, I think it would be just a very violent battle on forums. And it was already pretty heated from time to time.
Right.
But no, I think it will be just a complete rampage. No.
For sure.
Yeah. It's too important. Like we say at THU, it was just like for this revolution, it's going to be far more dramatic than the Industrial Revolution.
Right. Yep.
Except the Industrial Revolution was taking away the the low-paid, less interesting jobs.
Right.
And this one is just kind of the opposite.
You're taking away the high interesting job.
Yeah, I really think because right now you can make new picture, you can model things, but it doesn't do it doesn't unfold UVs, for example. It would be great to have something to take care of the boring stuff.
Right.
And ChatGPT is kind of replacing the white collar jobs.
Yep.
It's not the hard work, and no, not at all. It's just everything that's interesting. It's just getting away. So we are letting some automated processes taking care of the thinking, and I think it's pretty dangerous. And it's when you look at all some TV shows are completely stupid, or some arguments in politics, for example, you say, no, it would have never been possible 20, 30 years ago to have that argument in politics, and now you have it. So I feel like we are just running in high speed into what's the name of the movie? It was not. I don't remember.
What was it about? I'm pretty good at this.
It was just everyone was just basically completely idiotic.
Oh, he's talking about Idiocracy?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
I think we were just rolling full.
Oh, we've been
speed in
doing
this.
that long before, I think.
Yeah, but I think we're just going full speed there. It's just
This
like
is this. So you're thinking that these tools are basically enabling us to fall into that faster?
Yes,
Okay.
completely. When you look at how much everyone that just look at ChatGPT and what it produces, kind of you have to double check everything.
Yes.
Because sometimes he just made up things, but then you don't see the difference between what he made up and what he didn't.
Yeah.
So at the end, you have to double check. But everyone is gonna is everyone going to double check everything? I'm pretty sure not. And it will.
But they never were.
worse.
They never were. I mean, I remember actually having this conversation because I was part of before 2020, people were worried about deepfakes, right? Yeah. And deepfakes were concerned, and they were like, "Oh, this is." I was on a couple of panels regarding digital humans, and they were saying, "Well, this is going to destroy politics. This is an election year. What's going to happen?" And it turns out they didn't need to deepfake anything. They just straight up lied, and that was enough because people just believed it. They didn't need an AI to lie to you. They just lied.
Have you seen what happened today in Russia?
Oh, right.
It's just on Twitter. They just make a deepfake of Putin saying, "Get away from the Russian territories at the border."
Right.
With an AI deepfake.
But they know it is. You see, you already know it is.
We know people there. Maybe they don't all know that. So, I mean, it's happening.
Right. Yeah. I have a feeling that the more people illustrate it, that the more people are going to question the truth or not.
Yeah, but then, I mean, there was already a lot of conspiracy theories.
Sure.
It's gonna be, it's gonna be crazy.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's not end on such a dramatic note and downer. What do you feel excited about in terms of what the work you're doing and how you want to go? Like, what are you excited about in terms of creativity right now?
I'm much more excited. David Levy was at THU one year. I think he said something very true. He was saying that whether all the good movie you work on the biggest project, it's always the people that remains. And what I'm really excited today is the people I'm working with. I feel like the friendship and the family and everything. Even though I love my job, I think doing your job with people you really respect and you have a great time working with, I think it's just great. That motivates me. That inspires me doing some pictures. So yeah, because at the end of the day, what's gonna be? Do I need to make a bigger movie each time I'm making a new one or bigger books? It doesn't make sense,
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. It's a lot of fun.
Sorry for my English.
No, your English is great. Are you going to go to THU this year?
I think this year is only in Japan,
Yes.
so I may not be there for
Okay.
this year, but I'd love to. But I will probably have some work to do.
Okay.
And people from THU, they need to see new faces and not only mine.
Yeah. Well, if you do go, it'll be good, catching up again at that
Oh,
point.
it would be a
So,
pleasure. Yeah.
awesome. All right. Well, thank you, Marc, so much.
Thank you so much, Chris.